Judges to insist on an end to the re-examination of Dr. Bawumia.
Somehow, through the back door, that ruling has been negated. Through the back door, that ruling has been negated.
We cannot take dictation from the back. We can't take dictation from the back.
Tonight we tell you why the Supreme Court judges are warning they will not be dictated to by lawyers.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
Top Story is brought to you by Bond Financial Services, your success, our passion, Belacra Mineral Water, the new generation mineral water. It's also brought to you by Lifebuoy, still 100% better germ protection. Also by Blue Rose Limited, Shelter for All, and Star Life Assurance. We cannot be dictated to from the bar. Now, the words that summed up a standoff between Supreme Court judges and lawyer for the petitioners. They disagreed over whether or not the re-examination of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia had ended. Lawyer Philip Addison, representing MPP 2012 presidential candidate Nana Addo Akufo-Addo and two others, had insisted he had not ended his re-examination. But the president of the panel of judges, William ATUGUBA, disagreed as he indicated an end to proceedings. Ms. Addison then accused the judges of curtailing his re-examination through the use of what he called backdoor ruling. That did not go down well with the judges, who minced no words and in declaring that they will not be dictated to by the lawyer. Listen.
The matter has been ruled upon, and that ends the proceedings on re-examination.
No, that's not the end of the re-examination.
Well, we heard you said subject to. Well, my Lord,
there was a ruling by this court allowing us to lead evidence on the recategorization. As it is now, we have through the back door been denied that right. The same right given to us has been taken away.
My Lord.
And therefore, we cannot say that we have ended re-examination.
My Lord. Well, our view is that is ended because your last question was about this tendering. And the ruling on it, closes the matter. It's a subject to that matter of tendering the document, which we have ruled on. And so, for us, we have closed the matter.
In view of the present ruling, we think that it's only fair that we are allowed, in the interest of justice, to carry on with our re-examination, unless again the court is curtailing that right of us to do the re-examination. Are we to take it that our re-examination has been curtailed by the court?
Mr. Addison, we have ruled that following our understanding of what you did in your process, you said you had just one last question.
No, I didn't say I have one last question. I said the subject to the ruling of the court.
Yes, and we have
the court ruled in our favor, and now somehow through the back door that ruling has been negated.
Through the back door.
That ruling has been negated.
What ruling?
That ruling, the court gave us the right to go on with leading evidence of recategorization. Well, somehow been negated.
Look, I think that we've tried to be very tolerant, but we cannot take dictation from the back. We can't take dictation from the back. And this matter, when I even noticed you later, and I was wondering why you are still standing. And then you added this bit about, you could supply the numbers later. We all heard you. At that time, the views were advanced, leaving about just 2 or 3. And then the rest came in also sustaining. And I announced the ruling. And that closes the matter.
We are not dictating to the bench. We are not dictating to the bench. We can
Mr. Addison, we have ruled, we have understood all that you have said. And we have explained to you that if you had retreated, we would have probably considered that, but you did not.
So the court is curtailing our re-examination.
And that terminates.
The court is curtailing our re-examination.
We have not curtailed, we have gone according to your undertaking as regards the re-examination?
My Lord, respectfully, may we respectfully ask that the document be marked rejected.
My Lord, we are all in this court, and documents that have been rejected coming from the other side have not been marked. That is all that I was saying.
Oh, my Lord, counsel, please show some respect. Show some respect to the bench, counsel.
Joining me now on the line is a spokesperson for the MPP legal team, BUABEN ASAMOA. Thank you, sir, for your time here on Top Story. So clarify this for me. So are you done with your re-examination, or is it the case that the court made that decision for you today?
In a sense, the court helped to make the decision, but all the material we wanted to put in to the best of our purpose and knowledge has gone in. So we are done.
And explain to me what led to that heated exchange between your lawyer and the president of the judge. What was it exactly that prompted that?
It was a question of principle consistency in the rulings that was at stake. Essentially, if you understand the nature of the document that was going in, it is not new evidence. It is a compilation of material that is already in evidence but scattered throughout the 13 days of cross-examination by Mr. Chikata. And so the witness had asked specifically for a right to examine on that matter. And that is what he titled the recategorization. And if you will recall, the question of whether or not he could lead evidence on the recategorization was reserved for ruling till later. And then he asked a last question about the methodology for the analysis, which was overruled. And then the court broke for lunch. After lunch, the court came back and said, you could go ahead and deal with the recategorization. So then he asked the question is answered in the yes. Then he seeks to tender a document to support the yes as part of his understanding of the ruling that he could continue there. And then there is an objection raised that the list does not have exhibit numbers. Now, question there was whether or not one could retain the old exhibit numbers since they'd been recategorized from existing exhibit numbers to a new range where they did not have numbers before the court. So, in seeking to resolve that, the court then appeared to say, we are rejecting what we have allowed you to put in because it doesn't have exhibit numbers. And to my mind, the court could easily also have said that we will admit this to facilitate our work because it is already in evidence. It is in there, except that here is being bunched together to make it easier for us, which had been done before for Mr. Chikata. When Mr. Chikata brought in a document that the court accepted that it was an index and facilitatory to the court only because the evidence had been led and it was already in the record. So for consistency's sake, this was a perfect case of that. Or, as counsel offered, the court could have said, bring it back tomorrow with the old exhibit numbers pointing to which is which. Because you have identified them with constituency, polling station code, and serial number. But, just for more efficiency, we remember them as exhibit numbers. So, add a column with the old exhibit numbers so that you categorize that this is the old number, this is where it's moved to. It would have been easy for the court to do in order to sustain some consistency in the ruling.
But clearly,
to reject it outright was a little surprising.
So clearly you were surprised by the constitutional bench.
One had been given a right with the left hand, which had been withdrawn with the right hand.
I see. Stay on the line for me. I've been joined by a member of the NDC legal team, Abraham AMALIBA. They raised an objection today that led to this particular controversy. Mr. AMALIBA, thank you very much for your time here on Top Story. Now, you had put in the objection that led to this standoff. We heard at the tail end of that incident we just played, one of your lawyers, indeed a lawyer for the president, Tony Letha, indicating to Mr. Addison to show some respect to the bench. Is it your view that what happened today and that standoff, you take the view that Mr. Addison was disrespectful to the bench?
Indeed, it was contempt of court for the court to have ruled and for Addison to persist on asking the court to reverse a ruling when the court had already given a ruling on this matter. Indeed, today's damage down to the petitioner's case was of titanic proportions, and that is why you find that Addison was not of himself but kept arguing with the court. Indeed, on this matter, the court gave him a clue, and if he was smart, he could have withdrawn that document and as it were, put in the proper and appropriate columns that were in issue, and then tender it tomorrow. But he failed to do that. He failed to take a clue from the bench. Now that the bench had ruled on it, all the 9 justices decided on it, and he's insisting that nevertheless they should allow him in the interest of justice, but justice is within a certain confine. And so I saw what he did, not that he was not showing respect to the court, but also it amounted to contempt of court.
But really, he has the liberty to decide when to end his re-examination, doesn't he?
Indeed. Nobody stopped him. He gave a hint that subject to this last question, he was no more going to ask a question. And so it's not as if the court brought closure to his cross-examination. He indicated to the court that after this question and after that tendering, he would end his cross-examination. And that was what the court ruled upon.
I see. Mr. ASAMOA, he says the damage to your case today is of titanic proportions.
That is the kind of propagandist language I expect the lawyers to use. Where is the damage? It has nothing to do with our matter. It's just a fringe issue. These are matters already in evidence. You have a few polling stations which have been recategorized out of 11,138, which we are trying to bring together in an index to aid the court. The only difference is that the court will now have to tease out one by one out of a mass of cross-examination evidence. So it has nothing to do with the solidity of our case. So if the NDC will tickle itself and laugh about Titanic and contempt of court, that's their business. But the truth of the matter is that the reference to be disrespectful and otherwise is not to the court. Haven't we seen worse incidents of arguments between the lawyers on the other side and the court? And who talks about disrespect? That was a tongue-in-cheek remark by Mr. Litter towards Mr. Addison, and he didn't even bother to respond. And if the court felt disrespected, they would have responded straight away to that matter. So that is beside the point entirely. What is at stake is that you give me a right to cross-examine, to re-examine and put in a document. You will now take away that right on a basis that I do not appreciate. So I say that give me the opportunity then to assume my right again. Because if you have curtailed my right to present the document on an objection that I do not believe ought to have been sustained in law and equity, I have a right to continue.
Okay, I want to
bring... the bench insists that once I have done this, I am finished with you. And please, sometimes when we refer to the court, we have to be careful about the way we assume certain things on behalf of the court.
Okay, I want to quickly
talk about contempt.
I want to quickly bring it back, Abraham AMALIBA. Abraham, certainly from what happened today, and he's indicated that you're done with your re-examination. The ball is back in your court. What is it that you intend to do with it tomorrow?
A point of correction. When the Supreme Court allowed the question, it is different from allowing or disallowing the tendering of a document. Don't mix the two at all. The Supreme Court allowed the question, but not to say that they allowed a tendering of a document. Tomorrow, we are prepared. And Asiedun Ketia, the general, will take the witness box. If only they announce to the court that they have closed their case. If that is done, we would mount the witness box through Asiedun Ketia, and we are confident that in Asiedun Ketia, we have a competent witness who can provide evidence.
Mr. ASAMOA, are you ready for that?
Yes, two inconsistencies there. Is it now saying that we have to come and announce that we have closed our case? So he admits that the case ought not to have been closed the way it was, prematurely, and in circumstances that have baffled the public and everybody who was there. In any event, we have moved on from there. Please, let me speak. Stop him, let me speak.
Briefly, Mr. ASAMOA will make his point, then I'll come back to you, Mr. Abraham AMALIBA.
Mr. AMALIBA, let me speak.
Mr. ASAMOA, please go on and make a point briefly.
Then the ruling that came from the court was not a distinction between asking the question or tendering a document. The ruling said you can lead evidence on categorization. and leading the evidence includes tendering documents and asking questions thereon. It was not about one single question. It was about whether or not categorization could be open for questions to be led on there and for evidence to be presented on there. And that is exactly what the ruling was, and that's exactly what we all understood by 5-4, that evidence could be tendered. And then the evidence includes the questions and the documents. So the question is asked, is further to us, yes. The document is being tendered. It wasn't, nobody raised an objection that it was being tendered. The objection was that there was a column on there which ought to have appeared, which is not there, which is exhibit numbers.
Okay, quickly.
The technicality here is very subtle.
Quickly, I just run out of time, but I want to bring back Ms. AMALIBA to respond to that. Thank you very much, BUABEN ASAMOA. Ms. AMALIBA, can you respond to that for me briefly?
When I indicated that they have to announce to the court that they have closed their case, it's because they have opportunity, if they so wish, to call a witness on their side. So if they do not wish to bring a witness, they could announce to the court that they've closed their case, they are not intending to bring a witness. I'm not talking about a re-examination again. The court can allow them to bring a witness to support their case. That's what I meant, and not to talk about the re-examination. We'll
wait to see what happens tomorrow. But thank you very much. Ibrahim AMALIBA is a member of the NDC legal team. He had BUABEN ASAMOA, who is a spokesperson for the MPP legal team. That's it for Top Story. My name is Evan Spencer.